And so it was a long journey of, in between having gigs where I need to play to make money or to teach, how do I go after and find my own voice? And so I think that's one of the reasons I like teaching now, is to like speed up this process for other people. But how do you find your own voice? How do you then play music you want to play that fits your hands, that fits your instrument, that you can adapt and play with others, or just sit down and play? Because I wasn't able to just sit down and play. I had to work at it. And it really was this eye-opener that sometimes the most beautiful music is not more difficult. It's just more interesting. And I had been raised with, when you look at a really simple piece of music, okay, yeah, that's when you're in 4th grade, but then there's a lot more notes on the page. Okay, now you're in 10th grade, and as you advance, there's more notes. Rather, now I feel like I want to advance towards beauty. My whole path, I want to play beautiful music. I want to create more beauty in the world. I don't want to create more noise.
Hey, and welcome to Strings of Hope. I'm Sunita, your host and the improviser of this podcast. Music has been a lifelong inspiration and light to me, starting with tinkering away at the piano in childhood and being inspired by the ancient stories of King David and his healing harp. That early inspiration eventually led me to discover my own path with the harp, which began in 2014, when I built my first harp from a music maker's Regency kit. I love playing the harp and teach workshops focused on meditative and therapeutic harp, improvisation, and playing from the heart. But Strings of Hope is about more than just music technique. It's about the stories behind the strings, how passionate artists overcome challenges, dedicate themselves to their craft, and find their unique way of fulfilling their dreams. Because whether you're a musician or following any other calling, the journey of turning passion into purpose takes courage, hard work, and an unwavering belief in what matters to you. It requires the art of improvising our life's path every day and learning how to get up after we fall. In each episode, I'll be sharing conversations with inspiring harpists, builders, and artists from around the world who've walked this path and have wisdom to share with us about living authentically and never giving up on what we love. Today, I'm thrilled to introduce you to Sunita Staneslow, a harpist whose style was a huge inspiration to me when I began my own harp journey, and still inspires me in my music. Let's dive into our conversation and discover her story. So I think it would be great to start if you could tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, so I'm a harpist, and I'm originally from Minnesota, and I'm passionate about teaching, and thrilled to be sharing my journey of how I got inspired with you. I was trained classically, and I've always played music and enjoyed music, but what really changed everything for me, I think, was moving to Israel. So I went to Israel, and then I went back to the States, and then I moved there for 22 years with my family, and I'm talking to you now from Shetland, my next adventure.
Whoa. So from the States to Israel, to the States to Shetland?
Yes. No, back and forth to Israel, and then straight from Israel to Shetland.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. So what year did you get to Israel at?
We made Aliyah in 2000, but I went to Israel in 86, 87 to study with Judith Leiber, the harpist with the Israel Philharmonic.
I was just about to ask that, like, what drove you, like, what got you to move from the States to Israel? It's like a big change in life. And
yeah, you mean the real move of my family? Well, I'll tell you about both.
Yeah.
So I was studying in Boston. I went to college in Tufts University and took lessons at Boston University with Lucille Lawrence. And so it was sort of like international relations major at Tufts. I was always interested in maybe working with women's health, or third world, what they call it, development. And I also was interested in music, and I wasn't sure what I wanted to do for graduate school. So I actually went off to Sri Lanka for half a year after I graduated and was a volunteer in a grassroots organization, local one in Sri Lanka, and lived up in a village and part of a healthcare teaching project. That's a whole other story. Very exciting, but I realized that if I'm going to do that, then like the people I met in all these, through the embassy or these different nonprofits, they're either going to stay, like someone who's on a malaria project for 15 years, off in a village, or they're moving around all the time. And I thought, well, if I'm interested in some of these issues or hunger or health, maybe I should do it in the States, but I'm not trained at all. And, I'd have to, I did social sciences, not, anything with science. So I had also planned to spend time in Israel and study harp. So I thought at first, well, maybe I'll just go to New York, be a waitress, and study some harp. And I realized that if I do international relations, I should do harp someplace exotic and learn something more. And all my friends said, the teacher was in Tel Aviv. They said, no, you have to live in Jerusalem. Tel Aviv is just, nothing compared to Jerusalem. It's so much more beautiful. Just go to Jerusalem. And so I did. I only looked for apartments in Jerusalem, and it took me like 3 buses and forever for lessons in Tel Aviv. But Tel Aviv just seemed so, I don't know, brash and ugly compared to Jerusalem. So I went to Jerusalem, and that's what changed my life really, is hooking up with other musicians, and we'll get more into this later, learning to arrange and improvise and feel this agency that I can play music that I want to play, not just classical music. Right. But things fell together for me for classical music. I subbed in the Jerusalem Symphony for half a season. The harpist was on maternity leave, and things just fell into place. I fell in love. I married a nice Jewish boy from Edinburgh, Scotland, who had family also in Israel. And I went to graduate school. I decided to be a harpist in New York. I went to Manhattan School of Music. And
so this was following?
This was following the year and a half in the 80s. Okay. So 87 to 89, I was at Manhattan School of Music. And then never really had a honeymoon. A good friend of ours in Israel was a clown, and he said, look, you could busk in the streets and travel as long as you want. So we bought a round-the-world plane ticket, and I brought my harp, and my husband, Fred, knows how to juggle. And so we thought, well, when we ran out of money, we'll just get on the plane and then, end up back. We decided to settle in Minnesota, where I'm from. But we spent a year. So, yeah, you don't know this about me. So I spent a year busking through Europe, and then in Israel, I made my first cassette, Celtic with klezmer. And I realized that if I didn't have a cassette, I wasn't making the kind of money people did with cassettes. This is 1989 when cassettes were king. And then we traveled in India and Thailand with my harp. I mean, British artists took my harp.
What harp were you busking with?
Batting an eye. So it was made by Jack Hewell's 34-string beautiful wooden harp.
A 34-string harp traveling around the world?
Yeah. Whoa. Yeah. It was a real harp. Renana Neiman, she has that harp now in Israel. Mm-hmm. And it was a very sturdy harp, sturdy travel box. And then busked some in Australia. The very best busking was in Adelaide, Australia. Mm-hmm. Then over to Samoa, Fiji, back to America, where busking was in California, and back to Minnesota. So that got me realizing I need to learn to memorize music. I need to be able to just pick up music, just like I felt that way in Israel.
Were you improvising at this point, or you were still just classically trained?
No. Okay. I was still classically trained and reading from notes, but playing folk music. Mm-hmm. And realized that I thought every country they'd want music from their country, but they saw harp. It's actually Scottish harp, but looked like could be an Irish harp to them. They wanted Celtic music. They didn't want, music from their country. So I dove deeper into Celtic music, actually, with that traveling. But it was a long journey for me to break away from notes.
Right. So you're actually classically trained from throughout school, and then it's like as a child. When did you start playing music? So
I started piano in first grade. My mom had all of my brothers and I learned piano in first grade. And I was drawn to melody. We had friends down the street that there was a couple, and they both played flute with the Minnesota Orchestra, and we get like really good tickets to go. And I was just waiting for the flutes to play, not even really looking at the harps. And I remember we had dinner at their house one day, and I was in second grade, and I was like, oh, I really want to play the flute. And she brought out the flute and said, look, your fingers are too short. You should wait till, band starts in fourth or fifth grade. Why don't you play harp like our daughter Leah? And so I thought, oh, yeah, I could do harp, sort of almost more as a whim. So I said to my mom, yeah, why don't I play harp? She's like, yeah, right. You'll get over it. Everyone wants to play harp for like 10 minutes. We're not about to go out and get you a harp. So then I wanted to do it even more, you know. And there was another neighbor in high school that could be a teacher. So they thought, oh, we'll give her a few lessons. So I walked down the street for lessons, and I was determined to play the harp because at that point, it just seemed like maybe a challenge. And the harp was kind of intriguing or special, but it wasn't like I dreamt of it for years. It sort of landed with me. And so my great-grandmother bought the harp from the music store window, a troubadour. I mean, it was very easy. The Twin Cities is very musically oriented, so that there was musicians on my street. I walked down the street and studied with a harpist that was in high school. Before then going on to like a sort of a music school where I took lessons. And
wait, so hold on. It started in first grade, like it started the
with piano.
Okay. So at high school you went into the harp?
No, second grade. Second grade.
Okay.
Yeah, when my fingers were too short for flute. And then I did study flute in fifth grade. So I played piano, flute, and harp all through until the end of high school.
Okay.
When I switched to just harp.
Mm-hmm. And the harp that you took to school to music school, I mean, in music school you were studying the harp also? That was like what you went through with it?
So, yeah, so there was like sort of like a conservatory where it was a troubadour. They had harps there. That's the great thing about the harp. You don't ever have to take it to lessons. So I then, because I was on this classical track, everyone was on a classical track back then, my parents had no idea what they were getting into. I wanted then a pedal harp. And, I did the American Harp Society and the American Harp Society competitions, and it was all very classical. You're learning, you're memorizing, you're competing, you're doing recitals. And I did youth orchestra, and I got a pedal harp at the end of junior high.
Wow.
So then I was a pedal harpist, and I was.
That's so funny. Like I can't imagine.
Was one of the winners. Yeah, it was my pedal harp.
Yeah, like your music just so much like registers in my brain, like Celtic, spiritual, like it's like it's hard for me to imagine you sitting at a pedal harp doing classical music.
So yeah, I was in a concerto competition in high school and played the Mozart and flute and harp, and I love all kinds of music. And it's interesting for me when I run into a lot of other musicians is I find this in common, that a lot of people that are musicians love a lot of different kinds of music, just like people who are really good chefs. They love all kinds of different food. And but then I was searching for where would I play and what's my voice, and I didn't have a voice that was mine. And that was one of the reasons I was also interested in the world and giving back, that I majored in international relations, and music. So I hadn't found my voice then. What would I really do with the harp? And it seemed like, well, you do orchestra. So I even auditioned for some orchestras, and I played for a number of years with the Renana Symphonette in Israel. And subbed with the Jerusalem Symphony. I found it, though, not my voice. Didn't make me happy. It was high pressure. It's exciting to be part of a team, but it was clear to me after a while, this is not what I want to do if I want to be a musician. So it was a long journey to almost train my brain. Okay, I want to sit down and jam with people. I want to play with other people. And when I was in the 80s, in Jerusalem, I lived in an apartment with several other musicians, and they would jam until 2 a.m. and play klezmer music and all kinds of stuff. And I needed my part. Where's my harp part? I didn't know what to do. And I had musicians that were amazing musicians that wanted to play with harp, and they would coach me. Well, here's the chords. Think about this rhythm, or can you do this? And they would sit and work with me.
Mm-hmm.
And so I feel very, really blessed in that way. And I started to then play pieces I loved rather than waiting till this next piece is published or that I can buy.
Wow. So that must have been very liberating to be able to just pick up the harp and...
Yeah, but it took a long time. I mean, it's still a journey I'm on because my brain was set for, reading and then interpreting what this person has arranged or has composed. And I, didn't study that in school. I took workshops and I took even some private lessons with some jazz players. Like, how do you improvise? How do people go about arranging? And so it was a long journey of, in between having gigs where I need to play to make money or to teach, how do I go after and find my own voice?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's one of the reasons I like teaching now, is to speed up this process for other people. But how do you find your own voice? How do you then play music you want to play that fits your hands, that fits your instrument, that you can adapt and play with others, or just sit down and play? Because I wasn't able to just sit down and play. I had to work at it.
Did you feel like it was just something that other people had as a gift and just something that it's not for everyone before you learned how to do it?
No, it was like a mystery to me. Because I'd taken all these years of lessons. How can somebody just learn 3 chords in a guitar and just sit down and jam with other people? And then it was almost like this. No, it was almost like realizing I was only taught in one way, and there's this huge spectrum of how you can listen to music that I wasn't taught to listen that way. And almost felt like, I don't know, it wasn't maybe sad, but just realized that I just didn't know what to ask for. I could have also learned guitar, and maybe that would have helped me just sort of to listen to chords and play along. It's different now. There's so many different arrangements. There's so many festivals and workshops that it's a whole different scene out there for learning from the get-go. When I grew up, everybody played from the same books, the same music, classical music, 'cause the classical harp repertoire is really small. We all, were sort of on this classical journey together, and it was almost not discussed. It was almost like this window opened up, oh, can think about music this way. I want to learn. I was hungry.
Oh, so there weren't very many harpists improvising then?
No, not at all. Wow. Not at all. Not when I learned. There was nobody to learn from.
Right.
And then I remember in college seeing these, it was in Boston, so I saw these flyers. It was when Deborah Henson Conant, the jazz harpist, was saying jazz harp and her phone number, back these things, and you rip off this phone number from a sheet. This is before email and websites, and people didn't put stuff on YouTube. And because I thought, wow, and she was a trailblazer. I just remember seeing some of her performances and just, my jaw would drop.
Yeah.
So, but so I learned at a time when people didn't do it. It's a different time, unless I'd done by ear with folk music, but there was almost nobody to teach me that either when I grew up in Minnesota. So I don't know. So, I feel like I'm able to bridge this gap between some people who just have picked up and taught themselves or learned by ear, and those that are classically trained. I sort of understand how to make that bridge now.
Awesome. So
that's really opened up doors for me teaching at festivals. Because I think a lot of people that just learn on their own, they don't know how to explain to people that only read notes. How do you think? How can you think about it differently?
Right.
How can you think about music or listen to it differently?
Right.
And so it's been a long, long journey. It took me many, many years to start improvising. I guess I was influenced by then arrangements that came out in the 90s, from Kim Robertson. I was really influenced by her because she started then using interesting harmonies and rhythms. And then there was an ensemble called Sheilas. It was a duo with a wire-strung and gut-strung Scottish harpist. My husband's from Scotland, so we would go to Scotland a lot. So I met Scottish harpists, and they were on tour in the States, and I organized a concert for them. And And it really was this eye-opener that sometimes the most beautiful music is not more difficult. It's just more interesting. And I had been raised with, when you look at a really simple piece of music, okay, yeah, that's when you're in fourth grade, but then there's a lot more notes on the page. Okay, now you're in 10th grade. And, as you advance, there's more notes. Rather, now I feel like I want to advance towards beauty. My whole path, I want to play beautiful music. I want to create more beauty in the world. I don't want to create more noise.
Right. That's one of the things that comes up with me in my lessons with students is the idea of leaving more space. It's like sometimes you find the more you leave, the more space you leave, the more space there's for the beauty of the music to breathe and to form itself.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And I keep reminding people, a lot of people come from piano where to make, or any other instrument except for pitch percussion, you are physically moving somehow to make a sound, and we get away from the strings and the harp is still ringing, or there's sympathetic vibrations, there's stuff going on, and even if you're not busy, there is still music, and there's this phrase that's like, or sound that's sort of slowly changing and drifting away, and it's almost like it's alive, and the people feel like, well, I'm doing nothing. So there's this natural tendency for harpists to be too busy because they feel like they're off the strings, they're not doing anything. It's something sort of typical more with harp than almost with any other instrument, I think, that they don't breathe enough because we don't have to breathe. I mean, so I feel like learning flute really helped me breathe and think about tone and melody. So all this classical background, I think it's helped me be more of a deeper musician because I worked on tone and timing on these other instruments in a way that I didn't have to as much on harp.
Beautiful. So is there a song that you would like us to listen here, to play here, for that connects with you with improvising?
I would love to share with you the classic Israeli song related to the Psalms, which, I mean, harp is so related to the Psalms because of King David. And it's one of the first pieces that I learned from Akiva ben Chorin, who was a klezmer flutist that I met when I first lived in Jerusalem. And he really wanted to work with a harpist. So he had all kinds of old klezmer and just beautiful melodies, mainly religious melodies, that I learned from him. So this goes way back. I learned Mi Ha'ish from this beautiful flutist. And then I rearranged it for a CD I did, Reflections on the Psalms, where I wanted to interpret the Psalms more as a therapeutic harpist. Like, I think of David as being a therapeutic harpist. He's playing for Saul. He's playing music to change people's moods or perception, or I think of it as changing the air and energy. And so you don't just leap into a piece. You're going to sort of sense the room and create a mood. And so in this arrangement, it starts with improvisation, and only at the very end do I play the melody all the way through. So like in jazz, you do the head, they call it. You do the melody, and then you go and improvise. And so I did it as bits of the piece, sort of all coming together until it becomes Mi Ha'ish from Psalm 34. Who is this man, or who seeks life, and basically to be good, to speak well, and to seek peace and pursue it. It's just with ancient wisdom that's so relevant today that it's one of my pieces that I never outgrow, really. So this is one of my favorite pieces I'd like to share with you.
Wow. So uh, that was really nice. That's so
Thanks.
beautiful. Like it reminds me. I'm definitely see what you said about leaving space. There's so much space there. And
Mhm.
are you finding this song like the words literally are who is the man? Who's a man who desires life, who loves,
Right.
Oev Yamim Lirot Tov, who loves days to see the good in them? Is that
Yeah.
so? Is that like your
Yeah. I mean, there's,
Mhm.
yeah, well, that part too. And also not to speak evil. I feel like this, or bad, I feel like there's just so much negativity out in the world and everyone's, on all the social media, cutting people down all the time.
Mm,
There's a lot of this negativity and that we need peace desperately in the world. And it's peace should be a verb, it
mhm,
doesn't just descend upon you,
right.
shalom, may there be peace, that we have to seek it and pursue it.
Mm,
And so every single line from Psalm 34, it's 12 verses 12 through 14 are powerful to me.
mm, okay. Beautiful choice. I have a question for you. So your journey with improvising, you went through the whole like classical system, and you were already, learning music from the time you're a little child, and
Mm-hmm.
and then you learned improvisation. So that might be intimidating for someone who's new to the harp. Can like what ages are you teaching improvisation to?
From the very beginning for everybody. And I think adults are somewhat resistant. So I've now figured out two main ways and workshops that I get people to start um, improvising. And one of them is to set it up, the harp, in a mode where you do beautiful glissando and any note you can kind of create because you have some doubled notes, but it's more than just a pentatonic. It's you're putting up the whatever major key you tune your harp in. So
Mm-hmm.
if you tune in E flat major, the third goes up, the fifth, sixth, and seventh. And then people can feel free to experiment. I think especially adults are more judgmental, like, oh, that sounds wrong. They don't want to do something that doesn't seem right. So I get them improvising on that. I get kids composing from the first lesson. Like, what
Mm,
would you think rain would sound like? Or, imagine snow. So it comes from the sky and it's going gently down, or leaves. So, like, how could you do that on harp? You need, direction and this idea of sort of, is it loud? Is it soft? Is it gentle? And to start thinking of music as much more than finger and plucking a string, but you're creating shapes and images and telling a story. So that's what improvisation is related to too. So, well, all music. And so get them thinking about creating sound less than right and wrong notes. Because I
mm-hmm.
think part of improvisation is about maybe sometimes you surprise yourself, you're creating and you sort of have a rough idea of what you want to do, but especially if you're set up so it's not going to just fall. But that you are, in the moment shaping something and that's where the music in some ways begins. I mean, now that I do so much improvising, it's really hard to go back and just read notes. And I try and tell my students to look at notes and, well, think of them as optional. This arrangement, this bar is really hard for your hand, or you're getting arthritis, or your hand's not big enough for this. Then take out those notes
Mm-hmm.
and don't feel guilty. It
Right.
doesn't insult somebody. And and then it becomes empowering. Oh, really? I don't have to do everything. It's like, yeah, you don't like the second movement, you don't have to do it. You don't like the second page, you don't have to do it. What brings you joy? Why? What path of beauty are you on? How do you create music? And to give them freedom from the get-go.
Mm,
And it's then I get them sometimes just working on arpeggios, so like going between two different arpeggios, or just starting to make music even when you're like even doing the scale. Does it sound like a melody when you're going up, or are you
mm,
just forcing it? Because I think people get stiff and tight and they're forcing, like scrubbing out the stain. Like, if I just do it a million times, I'll get it right, rather than, oh, if you let it go and listen, maybe you'll get it right. So it's sort of this idea of feeling free and that you can adjust things from the get-go. It's not like you
mm.
graduate to it.
Right.
And but I want people to be able to read notes so that they can get a lead sheet or get an arrangement and play it. So I think I wish I had been taught music holistically, but it wasn't an option when I grew up. So I think of it as holistic, that you can adapt music, you can find tunes, you can play them, you can get an arrangement, you can learn it. That all these are, people will learn in different, some people already come reading music or something in different stages, but that the idea is that music is, a bigger spectrum than just notes that you're recreating from the page. Mm-hmm. I try to get that. And I get people to learn pieces they like, especially adults.
Right.
They don't have to learn pieces they don't like. Then they won't really practice or learn them.
Right. Right. I just did that with my mother. So I'm teaching her. She got my Regency harp, and she's starting. She wanted to start lessons, and so I thought, well, I can't teach her "Mary Had a Little Lamb." So
no.
I started with 2 notes. I had here I have a harp here, so I started doing like G E G E G E. And then I had her do G F, G F, G F, G F, and then I showed her hey, that's Somewhere Over the Rainbow. Let's turn that into Rainbow.
Yeah.
So that was her first song. I realized adults need this. They need to learn songs they love as their first songs.
Exactly. I call them keepers. Learn keeper songs. I learned a lot of music that I just threw away afterwards. It's no, learn songs that you want to always play, or that are keepers, I call them.
Right. So I want to try that scale you mentioned. So if the scale that you use for teaching improvisation. So if I tune to 3 flats with E, A, and B's up, then that would be the key of C. So then,
but you don't want to be in the key of C.
Right.
So you
put
everything
them all
down.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And now put up the G's and B, C, D. I learned this from the person that bought my pedal harp.
From who?
A person that bought my pedal harp. I sold my pedal harp, which shocked everyone. Right. And it was just, the shock factor was worth it when I moved to Shetland. Right. And, because I was doing something with just often people put up their G's and their D's. And it's but if you put up the B and C, listen to that. I was wow, I never thought that the lever harp could do, because I'd always done all these glorious glissanos on the pedal harp with so many combinations, because each string could have 3 options. Right. So I had never thought to look deeper on the
right. Until you told me this, I only tried G and D as a pentatonic. So
yeah. Yes, it wasn't just me. You made me feel so much better right then.
This is it, right?
Yes.
It's beautiful. It's so magical. And then,
and
what
you
do you
pick up?
What does it revolve around?
So I wouldn't even think that far. Just pick out 3 or 4 notes, make a little mini phrase. Do-do-do. Good. Mm-hmm. And let it ring. And then maybe reach a bass note, reach a few more strings, and anything will work as long as you make mini phrases. Mm-hmm. But don't look for harmony, and don't be worried about repeating notes or anything. And now, take your right hand and do just, back and forth glissanos really lightly, like you are, softer and smaller, just, sparkling magic dust. And let your left hand do some melody, single notes. Yeah, great. And now reach for rolled chords, random chords with both hands. Don't try and make it anything special.
This is a lot of fun.
See, everything works. You just reach for a chord and it will sound good.
Yeah.
So this is the magic of that scale. So then it empowers people oh, okay, this sounds great. They've only just started the harp and they feel like they're creating something much more sophisticated than Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star or something.
Okay.
And then they're learning, to me, the core thing about music is you need phrasing, you need to create little melodies and to listen. And so they're learning that from the very beginning, rather than learn it, a lot of classical people, it's like you learn it slowly, you learn it without any feeling, and then you add the dynamics. And by then you've kind of killed it,
Yeah.
And so here we're starting with the music, like what makes the music, what makes the phrase? Are you doing a few notes? Are you listening? Is it question? Is it answer? And can you just create glistening, or can you, so they're diving sort of in the deep end, but in a very safe way, because the scale lets you sound beautiful no matter what you do, as long as you play something musical.
Yeah. Cool. Okay, so I wrote that down. Thanks for doing that with me. That was really cool.
Sure.
Okay, so I have a question for you. What harp is it that you're using nowadays, and how did you get to it?
So, it's funny, people always say they want a harp that they don't have, so I'm always still looking, maybe. It was a long process of coming from, I loved gut strings, right? Because pedal harp had this rich sound and was always looking for that sound. And so my harp that I traveled the world with, Jack Yule, had gut strings and a really rich sound, but it was really hard to go fast. It wasn't a light tension. And so part of what I'm playing now is related to now, 50 years after learning the harp. I don't want such high tension. My fingers don't feel good with high tension. And but I want the rich sound. So I have a harp built by the Camac from France, and it's synthetic gut strings, and it's not very high tension with a really loud and rich sound, and it's also lightweight. So it's hybrid, which I still love. If it's only wood, it's somehow always better. You can't compete. But this is still a very special harp, and it's allowed me to, I tour with it. I can fit it in a case. I have a Dusty Strings travel case, and I can fly around the world without paying excess baggage. And so it's sort of this harp I can just take anywhere, and I'm not worried about it being too fragile. But I also have a Dusty Strings 36-string bubinga, which is beautiful wood and rich and really rings, but I can't tour with it. And also sometimes with recording, it's kind of maybe almost too resonant. I've got to be more careful. I love that harp, but you won't always see me playing it.
Right.
But there's something about richness and glistening and all wood that I'm just drawn to.
Right. So your Ulysses from Camac still has a solid soundboard, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And then, you got it also for playing in the hospital?
Yeah. So I originally had one that was completely carbon fiber from Heartland Harps, and which was really light, and it was 36 strings, and I could just easily bring it into a room and smother it with medi wipes. But when you're in a single room, it sounded good. But I even used it to tour once, and it was higher tension. I couldn't play fast. I couldn't get the sound I wanted, because it's amazing that you can have this harp that really sounds like a harp, but it's not the same as wood. And I went on a bicycle trip. My husband and I travel a lot. We both enjoy traveling, and we decided to take a trip in 2016. It was like sort of a sabbatical in a way, for half a year. And I thought, okay, we're going to cycle maybe 5 hours a day. Then I'll have 5 hours that I could compose or arrange or finally really practice. So we put that in the back of our bicycles. We had a tandem bike and a trailer that we
Ulysses?
put No, this is before I got me Ulysses. This Heartland harp. This would be too fragile, I think, for the back of it, because it also has wood in it. And but my husband would stop and do work like at a cafe. I couldn't really practice, and so I didn't really play that much. But there was a competition that Camac had in Brittany, and one of the judges, his father had just died. He needed to leave, and then Nadav from the harp shop in Tel Aviv told him, Sunita's like just getting into France now. So Jacques said, hey, will you come be a judge? So I went, and I was a judge in Brittany, and I had my carbon fiber harp, and then I tried it side by side with the Ulysses harp, because they had like a showroom with all their harps.
Ulysses?
Yeah, no S. Everyone thinks there's an S. I called it for a whole year with an S, and it's like, no, it doesn't have an S at the end. And it's a world of a difference. And I told them, okay, when I get a chance, I'm going to trade to get I have to get this harp. It's
Yeah.
so clearly different. But it took me about a year. I mean, they're still expensive harps. And I think I was the first one in Israel to get a Ulysse. And I traded my other harp in to somebody who had back problems in the States and really wanted a super light harp. So she was
perfect.
really happy to get my Heartland, and I got my Ulysse then, maybe only 7 years ago.
Wow.
So I love the flexibility of the harp, but that also changed. Then for the hospital, I sold the carbon fiber, and we had these smaller harps that were donated that were what's called harpsicles, but they didn't necessarily have all the levers, and which didn't fill the room, but they were great for the kids. They could put them on the table or on the bed, but I wanted a bigger harp to play with them. And so I started bringing in my Ulysse harp, and I could, because it's, it's painted, I could put medi wipes on it and not ruining the wood. And that was the harp I brought in then to the hospital. And it felt like I had this really beautiful sound that I could bring room to room. And I think one of the most powerful things or rewarding that I've ever done is to work as a therapeutic harpist. And I was part of a study in the newborn intensive care unit in Meir Hospital in Kfar Saba, where I lived. But then I was hired at the Schneider Children's Medical Center, the Schneider Children's Hospital outside of Tel Aviv in Petach Tikva. And I worked there for, 14 years.
Whoa.
And
how did that come about? Like, when did you start playing therapeutic music?
Therapeutic harp?
Yeah.
So that was also sort of a journey. So it also started, everything happened in Jerusalem. So in Jerusalem with some of my harp friends, some of them were quite religious, and they really wanted to use the harp. There's some students of mine that in a much more meaningful or powerful way. They didn't want to just go play by some vase of flowers for people to make their wine taste better. They wanted something much more meaningful. And I said, well, they're starting these courses on therapeutic harp in the States, and there's actually one that's, we can do remotely. That was back when you had CDs, so it wasn't online, but you could get the CDs and listen to them. And so there was like 4 of us that decided, okay, let's learn to be more therapeutic harpists. And so I needed to raise some money for it. We thought we should get a harp for the hospital too. And so it was sort of a little bit of a journey to get several of us being involved. And there's still people playing now at a hospital in Jerusalem. But one of the harpists, my friend Shoshana, had a really dear friend that was in the hospital that was dying, although it was hard to admit she was dying. She had a young child and 3 other children. And so I said, Shoshana, you should bring your harp to her. We just got trained in this. This is the time. And she would go, and her friend only wanted, her to write down the whole blessings or, bring her water. And then she had stopped eating, and her family was called. And I said, Shoshana, this is the time, bring the harp. And she went, and she didn't have a car. She brought her harp on the bus. She went and, at Tzedek Hospital. And it was just, I don't know, too much noise. She didn't know what to do with the harp. She brought it out in the hallway. And her friend's son, who was about 10 at the time, super hyperactive and, sort of like didn't know what to do with all his energy, but he had been stroking his mother's hand, and he said he wanted to play the harp for his mother. So Shoshana set it for glissando, the harp, and said, okay, imagine you're stroking your mother's hand. And so he was like really gentle. He said, okay, let's bring it to the bedside of your mother. And he sat and he played for her just really gently with these glissandos for like half an hour for this 10-year-old who doesn't sit still for more than like 3 minutes. And his mother's last word was music, and it changed everything. So we also realized, wow, it's maybe not us being trained, it's us being trained to know when to hand the harp to the son, or whatever, that how the harp can be a really powerful tool in healing. And we just realized, okay, we've got to get a harp for the hospital. Let's go for it. And so I was in California on tour, and one of the harpist mothers works for a religious Jewish school, and there was a music program, and so I was just playing for the women and some of the mothers, and it was really small. I thought, how is this going to be a fundraiser? But I told the story of the boy playing for his mother, and that our dream is to have, a harp, in every hospital in Israel. But, we'd start with one. And then a woman came up to me after, and she said, I would like to donate a harp. How much does a harp cost? And I thought, oh no, if I tell her what a harp really costs, we won't get anything. So I just said $2,000. And she said, okay, then who do I give the money to? And I'm thinking, I should have said 4,000. What am I thinking of? So I was going from then right after to there was a harp festival in Philadelphia, and I spoke to the Virginia Harp Center, and I said, do you have a harp I can buy at cost, or a secondhand harp? How do I get a harp for $2,000 that I could just fly back with? And they said, oh, this is a beautiful cause. We'll sell you this new Kamak harp for cost. We'll sell it to you for $2,000 and take it to the hospital in Jerusalem.
Wow.
And then I thought, oh no, I hadn't thought about, strings or customs. Mm-hmm. And so Shoshana, my friend, said, and so I played a house concert and I got enough for strings. And then I thought, okay, how am I going to get through customs? And Shoshana said, just recite psalms. Just recite psalms as you're going through the Green Line, And so I said, okay, I'll do whatever you think. And I just walked straight through. I guess I looked very innocent and didn't have to pay customs. And we got the harp. It's still there. Sorry, said it.
Wow, so, what a story.
Yeah. And so then it was so the wind was at our back then for therapeutic harp. And I was asked to be part of a study with another musician at a hospital in Kfar Saba. And then word got out that there was a harp in a hospital, and the person that organizes music and education at Schneider Hospital, wanted to see if we could use harp. So I started out just playing a little bit, and then gradually they allowed me to go bedside. And then at the end, I was in every single unit, basically, of the hospital.
Wow.
So it was so meaningful to work with kids and to empower them, or to bring magic, or to get them to go to sleep. And I felt wow, and if I hadn't improvised, this would have been very difficult, mm-hmm. Or just to pick up songs that they want to hear. So, my life, by being able to arrange, by able to quick read music or chords, and the teenagers would just whip something out with just chords and melody, and because they wanted to sing a song. If I wasn't flexible, if I was still this classical harpist that only could read notes, I don't know, my life would have been a whole different journey. I can't imagine not being able to just arrange something or improvise or fade out so somebody can fall asleep. So all of these things, these improvisational skills were honed at the hospital. So I'm working for hours, every week. So I think with anything, you need to put time into it. And so I think one of my most successful CDs, Sea and Sky, was a lot of Celtic music that was really done in a very improvisational style, inspired by what I did at Schneider Hospital. And I found that too, one way of reaching out to everyone was to play Irish, or Scottish music, because then everybody thought, oh, it's a smaller harp, it's Irish music. They loved it. Whereas if you walk into a hospital room in Israel, and often there's 3 beds, and or in oncology there'd be 2 beds, and you could have somebody really ultra-Orthodox Jewish, somebody Muslim religious, or somebody super secular, or somebody from abroad. How do I reach, because the whole room's going to hear me? I would play Irish music and improvise around it, and then everyone was happy because we could sort of tell a story. This is, imagine magic or fairies or water. And So I played Jewish music and psalms in the hospital, but I played a lot of Irish and Scottish music and improvised around it. And this is um, also maybe because I love Celtic music. So it's like music is sort of a way of love, showing love
Mm-hmm.
too. So and this piece I want to share with you, Bridget Cruz, Turlough Carolan, the great Irish harper, he loved Bridget Cruz. It was, unrequited love. He never got to marry Bridget Cruz, but you feel the love in the
Mm-hmm.
melody, and it's sort of like laying a comforting blanket of sound for people. And so I played Bridget Cruz a lot. It was a go-to piece at the hospital, which Irish people get such a kick out of. But it's there's a magic to Celtic music that I think is universal.
Yeah, that's really cool what you mentioned about 'cause, how that album Sea and Sky is a lot of inspired from what you were playing in the hospital. It's one of my favorite albums of
Yeah.
yours, and
Oh, thank you.
I connect to that like that. I didn't realize that that's what it was from, but now it makes sense. So,
Yeah.
okay, so should I play Bridget Cruz?
Yeah. The third era for Bridget
Okay,
Cruz.
so here we
Yes.
have Bridget Cruz, the third air from Sea and Sky. Wow, beautiful.
Thank you.
So I noticed there's 4 airs to Bridget Cruz. 3 or 4? What did?
Yeah, there's four airs,
Right.
and I think the third air is the most famous.
Right. Okay. So I'm interested in hearing about, like, we heard how you got to the harp, how you found out, like, how you connected to improvisation, therapeutic music. You mentioned that you live now in Shetland. I'm interested in hearing how everything compilated to where it is, where you are nowadays, and what you're doing today.
Okay. Um, so I feel like it's just life is a journey, right? And I did so many interesting things and worked with amazing people in Israel, all kinds of different projects. But Israel's a very expensive place, actually, to live. And there was a point when I was feeling, that I'm just working so hard just to get to the gig. I have to pay for a car and pay for gas and get there early and then get paid. And that I remember one day I was driving for 4 hours just because I hit traffic in Tel Aviv. I was teaching at the harp shop up northern Tel Aviv, and I was in Jaffa, southern Tel
Mm-hmm.
Aviv, an hour each way. Then I had an hour, and it wasn't really that part, it was just bad traffic for wedding and back. And I'm thinking, I'm working so hard and just to sort of show up for gigs and not really doing any deep creative work because there's just no time, but I need to make sure I can afford to live there. And on the cycle trip that my husband and I did in 2015, 16, I guess I guess it was 2015 into 16. We went all the way up to Shetland, and he's originally from Scotland, and we had both never been to Shetland before, and it was just a magical week. And there's a lot of older houses here that have never been renovated, and my husband had done work in renovating houses before, and we thought, wouldn't it be great to actually buy an old house and restore it, and then we'd have a summer house, because summers are so hot for me in Israel. I'm not up in the beautiful Galilee like you, Simcha.
Right.
And I we bought this old house that needed massive restoration, and we were just in one room of it. And in 1 week, I had arranged a book that for Seraphim Music. A friend of mine, Rhett Barnwell, has a publishing company that just does sacred music, and so I've done a lot of like hymns and some even psalms for him. And I realized, wow, when it's quiet and light and I'm away from traffic, I can get so much done. So it was like, okay, this is the right move. We thought we'd spend just summers up there, but and it was all the timing of COVID. I was in Israel and my husband went a little bit earlier. He went in March, right before COVID set to be several months. They were starting to restore the exterior of the house. And I couldn't travel. I could travel later. And I visited him at the end of the summer because I had a property up. No tourists could come up to Shetland still during COVID. And I wrote another book of arrangements. And I thought, we sort of looked at each other. I thought, let's just move here. Nothing's going to get done unless we really, spend some time here. I'm feeling like I can get a lot of creative work done. I need to just sort of get out of the big city. And it was either the Galilee or Shetland. And we decided to move to Shetland. And so we did it. We took the plunge, which is actually a lot of work. People think I just sort of scoot across the world, but to move your family to Israel or when we had young kids, or to like move up here is a lot of preparation, a lot of work, and a lot of my time is spent helping volunteers or gardening, whatever. I feel more connected to the earth and sky too, which inspires me. So we probably will be here 10 years. I don't think I'd really want to grow old here so far from family. But the idea is, if I want to spend time being more creative, I'm feeling like I'm finally sort of further along in my journey that I can really compose more and I can do some interesting arranging. I need the time and space for it. So we did it. We moved to Shetland, and our house is still not finished due to hard difficulty getting workers and some workers that didn't do good work. But by the end of this coming summer, we'll be living in it. We're just renting a house down the
Wow.
street, and it's so nice to be. I don't know. Somehow I've always been by water, even in Jaffa, but here I'm right on the sea, and the sky is just so open, and I've seen northern lights for the first time, and there's a strong sense of community. So it's not like I'm off on an island by myself. There's a strong sense of community, and I'm actually just this weekend I did training to be an ambulance driver, volunteer, like first responder for this island. And so I don't know, I'm really enjoying getting away from the noise and just, I don't know, the energy of the city, and searching for parking places, and where I don't have to do any of those things here. And so I'm sure where I'll move afterwards, it depends where our daughter moves. I want to be close to grandchildren. So she's not married yet. So she doesn't have any grandchildren yet. She could stay in Israel. She has different passports. She could be anywhere. And but I feel like I just needed to nurture this creative side that I felt like I was just racing around doing gigs, and it was just such the right move. But it takes planning,
Right.
And we did it.
And then how are you nowadays turning that into, like, what are the different things you're doing nowadays for jobs with the harp to make a living through following your passion in the harp?
Yeah, so very few gigs. There's this beautiful mansion that is in a B&B that occasionally you play for some really interesting guests there. And I play for, there's this Unst Music and Dance Club, and we actually, play for some community events, and it's fiddle and accordion and harp and guitar. So it's really the local music and learning their tunes. But I am now the president of the Harp Society here in Shetland, so I'm busy writing grants to get harps into schools.
Did you say you're the president of the Harp Society in Shetland?
Yeah, I am.
Cool.
Yeah,
Okay.
It's called the Shetland Clarsach Group, and we're linked to the Clarsach Society of the Shetland branch from Scotland. So, to get things moving, because I'm the only really professional here. There's somebody who did some playing and teaching, but she's more of a piano player. But she's sort of my partner in this. And we meet once a month, and we're finding new members and people that always wanted to play the harp. So I'm doing that sort of locally, but I'm also combining. My husband has run a tour company for years, and combining sort of love of travel and meeting people with the harp. So since 2017, I've done a Scottish harp journey where I bring harpists around Scotland and up to Shetland and meet harp builders and other harpists, and get workshops from like local harpists, and also see the beauty in Scotland. And so now I'm doing 2 Shetland harp retreats, and I had at one point 3 students in Tuscany, and I thought, I want to figure out how to go to Tuscany. It's like, what a beautiful part of the planet. And so I started a retreat in Tuscany. So I get to travel and share my passion for learning and playing more beautifully, and go to these places. So I'm doing a little bit of traveling, and I've always done festivals like the Somerset Festival or the Edinburgh International Harp Festival. So I'm doing more festivals and travels. I don't have these, wedding gigs and background music in the same way here in Shetland. Right. So, but I'm really happy with the way it evolved.
Yeah, it sounds like it's more like tailor fit for the place that you're in. And
yeah. Because I built it. Where do I travel and what do I do?
Right.
Rather than competing for a lower price for the next local wedding or something.
So for harpists who's looking to get out, to learn and to travel, so that sounds like a really fun thing for them to do. You can come to one of your retreats.
And hopefully inspiring. Yeah. I went to the Tanglewood. I don't know if you know of Tanglewood. It's in Western Massachusetts. It's been there for a long time. It's like the summer home of the Boston Symphony Orchestra, and there's pretty prestigious summer camp there, and I went there in high school and was just so inspired. Just there's something about getting away from home and you open up your eyes, like maybe in a different way, to beautiful surroundings where you are, and can soak up music in it, maybe a different way too.
Yeah.
That I want to sort of share that.
Yeah, for sure. Leaving the place we're regularly used to and taking our instrument somewhere out makes us like space for growing.
Exactly.
Quickly. Yeah. Okay, so I'm about wrapping up here. So just where can people find you if they want to take lessons with you or learn more about the retreats?
So I have a website. Hammers is the name of our house. Hammers means a rocky outcropping by the sea. Our house has a name. So hammers.uk. And you can contact me. I teach on Zoom anywhere in the world. And it lists all my retreats. I have online concerts and I have music that I've arranged. There's links to the books and on Spotify. I have some problems actually on CD Baby and Spotify because some of my music was listed as my name Sunita Staneslow and some is Sunita. And there's other Sunitas out there doing music. So sometimes if you do a playlist of Sunita, you'll get harp music and all of a sudden it'll be something completely different. So it's hard to sort that out. I'm still working on that. But so Sunita is actually very common. I share it with millions of people probably. From Afghanistan to Sri Lanka, it's a name. And that is known. And so, but you can find me on Spotify.
Right. So
I have a YouTube channel.
I'll share those links in the notes.
Okay, great.
And two last questions. One is, what does Sunita mean? And how do you connect with that?
So there's the two parts, the name is Sunita. So one means like path or direction, and the other means goodness. So in Hebrew it's derech tova, and it's like being on a journey or a path towards something that is good, but it's more than good. It's like related to sort of the quality of goodness. So it's a beautiful name. Yeah. So, and I feel like life is really a journey, and now I'm really honing in on this idea of a path of beauty, path of seeking something that is really good, and not just scurrying through to the next paycheck or something. Right. So my name has always served me well, and now it's kind of it becomes part of my path, which is something kind of amazing. I think that how we are influenced by our names is probably pretty deep.
Right, our names is like our mission in the world. It's beautiful. Yeah. Okay, and the last question, if you could give your young self advice when you were, finding your way, finding your path, the difficulties you came up with in the harp, you sitting with your young self at a time where things just aren't fitting together, maybe you're losing the dream of the harp or whatever it is, what advice would you have given? Would you give now? To dig a little deeper, that I just sort of followed the rules, okay, you learn this piece next and then you go to this school. Where is my voice? What do I really want from it? How can this change? And I ask those questions later. And maybe if I had asked them much sooner, but I want to just sit down and play. How can who do I learn from them? Maybe I don't go to a harp teacher. If I had been a little bit more courageous in a sense. Yeah, a little bit more daring of okay, how do I solve this? Like listening to your inner voice, like you feel like you want something else that's not there. It's like going for...
Right. Or maybe I didn't even know if it was there or not, but maybe if I had dug a little deeper, I would have found it. I mean, now you have all these TED Talks that are inspiring or this or that, but I could have more, and you couldn't just look it up in the internet. And I think I didn't know who to ask or what to do. So it was more as the world opened up, I could ask these questions. But if I was younger, I would think, there are still people in those ways. You just didn't ask. To not be shy to ask. And I think a lot of people are afraid to ask maybe, and then yeah, maybe they think, oh, I could never learn the harp, so I'm not going to. It's like, why don't you just try or ask a teacher? Or, yeah, so I would have been maybe, I don't know if I was particularly shy, but no, it seems like that when I look, back. I could have been even more daring. I mean, I traveled the world, but I could have been more daring in a deeper way, I think. It made my journey longer, I think.
Right. Made it longer, but made it more accessible for other people to learn from what you did go through to
Right. That's the silver lining there. Yeah. Exactly. Now I can share it with people more.
Right. Cool. Okay. Well, thank you so much for joining here and for your time.
Well, and thank you for this whole idea, and that you are doing this to help inspire other people and seeing who is out there, and having a podcast. So thank you for who you are. And I think it's really inspiring that you play with your family. And I really wish you well.
Thank you. Thanks so much. And good luck there with the house. I can't wait to hear when you guys mamash move in and everything. And
there'll be big announcements and celebrations for sure. Absolutely.
Wow, what a great way to start off the Strings of Hope podcast. You can check out the show notes to find out more about Sunita. We'll have a link to her website and music and more about her amazing harp retreats. If you like to travel and see the beauty of the world and learn from a great harp teacher, that's something you don't want to miss. Till next time, I'm your host, Simcha Tzuf. Stay tuned.